What's up, everybody? What's going on, everybody? This is episode 149. Episode 149 of What's Up, Flobo. I just took me a second to think about that. Like, wow, 149 episodes, which means Friday is another milestone. Can you believe it? This episode and all the other episodes brought to you by StreamYard. That's what I'm using right now to stream and broadcast this show over to you. Go to StreamYard.com and use my promo link in the description below for a little bit of store credit, a little bit of school credit to get some discounts of the premium features. Now, it is currently 8 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. I'm drinking raspberry chocolate flavored coffee. I was watching the proceedings of the inauguration or the moments around it. So this morning, President Trump got on his Marine One, flew off into the distance, and this afternoon, in about half an hour's time on the East Coast, we're going to have the election of the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. Politics aside, because What's Up, Flobo is not a political show, it is interesting. Maybe the word surreal is something that's overused to see the transition happen in real time, especially this way. I've been on this planet long enough to see a couple of presidential transitions, and usually the outgoing president is there saluting people, shaking hands, and they exchange a gift to the incoming president as saying, you know what, we disagree, but America is right in your hands. And I've never seen it quite like this, where the outgoing president just like, like, you know what? I'm good. And in some ways, I can't blame the guy. Like, I guess if I was losing my job, I'll leave in a huff too. But there's also something to be said about traditions and making sure those are upheld. And even though that you may disagree politically, you want to show the American people that you have the best interests in mind. So there's a bit of maturity there as well. But that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today is about the entertainment side, because this is what I do. I hopefully entertain people with whether or not you know me from the comedy side, or if you know me from the hosting podcast side or the DJ side. I entertain people for a living. And what I've noticed over the past, say, 3 to 6 years, there was more of a shift into the maturity of things, the doom and gloom, the real world, if you will. I like to think of this through the lens of late night talk shows. People said that the Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon was out of touch of what the world was going on because of so much bad that was happening there. Jimmy Fallon was playing these no-nonsense games, and I always felt that was the right course of action personally. If you guys listen to anything I do, I always approach some things, most things, all things, with a shred of levity. Like, hey, look, this is Star Trek. Let's talk about a serious topic. Let's have some fun. Hey, we're watching a pro wrestling show and talking about the matches. There's no need for me to kick and scream about how a certain storyline was written. Let's have some fun. And I literally have a late night talk show Monday nights where I try to joke around with my guests. And so with that said, I kind of feel there is a bit of a pendulum here when it comes to the way we interpret our culture, whether it's more open and honest and realistic and back to being more aspirational or idealistic, or more fun, more serious, more fun, more serious. For example, if you can tell on the back wall here, for those of you who don't know, these are all DC Comics heroes. And DC Comics are essentially first as far as like the big two or the big three, and those heroes are more aspirational. Those are like ideals to strive for. Superman is justice, Batman is vengeance, Wonder Woman is compassion. But since then, there was Marvel Comics, where the superheroes were more relatable, powers with problems, if you will. Okay, so what am I getting with all this? Well, I'm saying even though we may seem a little bit world weary of what's going on, and we're not saying everything is different, everything is the same, I do feel, and I was listening to this with a friend this morning, that we may be shifting into a search for levity in our entertainment. Enough of the doom and gloom. We may see more comedic things, more let's have a good time despite what's going on. Yes, we are still crushed by student loans, and yes, the quality of life is really varying wildly between all of us, but let's get together and laugh and have some fun. And it's something that I've seen happen going into the late 80s into the early 90s. For some background, for those of you of that age, The mid 80s was considered one of prosperity. Whether or not you want to assign a reason for that prosperity, it's up to you. But then with the big market correction in the mid to late 80s, there was a little bit of a backlash when it came to that. And I remember the late 80s and early 90s, it was kind of scary for a lot of people. The greed is good era was over. They were just trying to make their way through what's the word? Make their way through the daily actions and daily consequences of what happened in the stock market in the 80s. But then in the early 90s, even though it was a down period, in the mid 90s, a bit of a recovery. For a lot of us my age, that was our golden decade. Oh yeah, remember when toy catalogs were going great and new stores were being launched and cartoons were on every channel. It just felt like the best time because of that. And I do feel like that is a natural course of things. There is a pendulum that swings back and forth. And so back to my original point, when it comes to entertainment, I think we're going to see a lot more shows, a lot less news, a lot less, especially in the comedy side, a lot less comedians just regurgitating their comedic take on the news as compared to coming up with original sketches again. I hadn't seen an original sketch show that really talks about sketches in a bubble in the past 3 or 4 years. I think they're going to make a comeback. I think comedy, I think levity is going to make a comeback. We're going to have more of a good time, a good night, a good showing, as opposed to let's just sift through what's happening now. And for those of you watching this, it's not a partisan thing. It really isn't. It really comes down to public sensibilities. You can go back to the days of Vietnam. You can go back to Vietnam War. I mean, you can go back to the mid-century post-war boom, the Pax Americana, if you will. It's cyclical. And I do think we're at the end of this more naturalistic, more world-weary, more let's just make our way through this cycle, and we might going back more into idealism, or at least a modern interpretation of that. Hey, that does it for me in this episode of What's Up, Flobo. Do yourself a favor, support the homie if you can by checking out the Patreon, patreon.com/FloboBoyce. That's so you can unlock bonus content. And if that's not your vibe, you want to get some merchandise, make sure you hit up Threadless at flobito.threadless.com. We have some brand new shirt designs, we have some mugs, we have some stickers. Do yourself a favor, check it out, support the homie. This is what I do for a living. I help a brother out. And until next time,